Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. We're going to be live coding today. So without any further ado, let's get into it. I am starting in a completely blank repository. Also, I've just realized that I've covered up the Rasa logos. And they're up there. Anyway, I'm starting with a completely blank repository, nothing in it. And what we're going to do is create a chatbot that can play rock, paper, scissors. So if you're not familiar with rock, paper, scissors, it's a game where you can make one of three shapes with your hands: rock, paper, or scissors. Rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper beats rock. And that's the game we're going to have a chatbot that plays. And I picked this as a demo because it requires resetting slots. We're going to use slots to store the information about what the player picked and use that to figure out whether or not they win based on the computer's random choice. So let's get into it. I've done a little bit of setup ahead of time, by which I mean I've installed Rasa 3. So you can see here are my, here is my operating system information, Rasa 3. Hey Amina, hi Jay. Aw, thank you Yoga, that's very sweet. We're in Rasa 3.0, Rasa SDK version 3.0, everything across the board. I'm using Rasa 3.8. If you remember, I'm using Python 3.8. Support for Python 3.6 is being deprecated, and support for Python 3.9 is not there quite yet, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, I am on Windows 10, which has some consequences that I will talk about when they come up. So let's kick it off by, are we in the right? Yes, we are. All right, let's kick it off by doing Rasa init. All right, so it's going to be created in our current directory, which is this empty directory I've created called Rock, Paper, Scissors Demo. So let's do that. And it's now creating a Moodbot, if you're familiar with that, which is our initialization project. And if you haven't used Moodbot before, it asks you how you're feeling. And if you're happy, it says, nice. And if you're sad, it shows you a picture of a baby tiger, or if you're on the command line, gives you a link to a picture of a baby tiger. So we're going to train our model really quick. And then I'm just going to go through the files and point out the differences from Rasa 2.x to 3.0. And then we're going to get started on modifying this to be a rock, paper, scissors chatbot. Coffee. Hi, Jorge. Welcome. Hopefully happy coding. So my plan is to start with the core functionality, and if we get done in time, play around with markers a little bit. And let's quickly talk to Moodbot now so you can see where we're starting with. And this is what will happen if you train Rasa in your local environment, or in a VM. Actually, anywhere where you initialize Rasa, this is going to be the same workflow. And I will say one of the issues with Windows is because of the way Windows resolves localhost, there is some additional, do I have anything open in that? Okay, so the error I'm getting is that I have something currently on 5005. Do I have an action server running somewhere? I think that must be what it is. All right. This worked yesterday, famous class of that. Rasa server up and running, all right. Rasa loop until complete. Only one usage of each socket addressed is normally permitted. So I must have something running. But where? Ooh, do I have a second VS Code open? Yes. Whoop. Don't save. Shh, that was my work from yesterday. All right, let's try this one more time. Rasa shell. This time, hopefully it'll work. The joys of live code. I am in fact doing this live. This is not a skillful recording. There we go. All right. Yoga asks, I want to ask whether you could today capture more deeply dynamic conditional forms in Rasa 3. After the migration yesterday, it doesn't work as it should anymore. That would be fantastic. I wasn't planning to get into forms today. I would post about that in the forums to get more assistance there and share your code and then your specific issues. And if it's a bug, I would post about it on GitHub. I'd file a GitHub issue. All right. Tim says, when will Rasa 3.0 be compatible with Rasa X? Is there a time scheduled yet? TBD, there's some exciting Rasa X stuff that's happened today, so keep an eye on it. Any chance of using Google Colab? It's been a while since I used Colab, and I believe that they have pretty strict limitations on doing external calls from within a Colab notebook. So I guess you could, what I'm saying there is, I guess you could use it for prototype. I would absolutely not use it as a production environment, is my stance there. Because it's not really designed to run things and serve as a host unless, again, it's been a while since I've used Colab. They might have done some pretty big changes since the last time I used it. All right, Moodbot. Let's start by saying hi. I'm great. I'm having a good day. All right, and then if I say bye, it'll say bye, and then I believe if I say if it's a bot, are you a bot? It'll tell me it's a bot. So this is the functionality of Moodbot, basically. Yep, all right, let's stop this conversation and ruin it. So we're gonna create a completely new assistant, but first I wanna go through and just show you a couple of the differences from 2.0. So one of the major differences is that we have a new architecture or a new way that the architecture works. So it's a graph architecture and it's very, very customizable. You don't have to customize anything. So if we go to the config, you can see that I have this new recipe up here that specifies my model configuration. There's a default one. It works exactly the same. This is new. Don't delete that. You'll get an error if you delete that, but you don't have to do anything with it. And if you did want to, build a custom model and change the architecture for your specific needs, that's where you would, point it towards the recipe. And then another thing to know is that the model names now have human readable words at the end of it. So they still have the timestamp in the front, but the model we just trained is synchronic avocado. So that's another difference. And then I believe the domain file for this assistant will look pretty much the same. Yep, because there are no slots in Moodbot, and that's the biggest change in the domain file. And then we don't have any markers that ship with Moodbot, I'm pretty sure, because that would be in a markers.yaml, and I don't see that. So those are all the changes that you will see in Moodbot. Let's get started changing this assistant to be a rock paper scissors playing assistant instead. So I want to keep goodbye, affirm, and deny. These two I want to get rid of. Right now I'm just changing the domain file. I'll go back and change the data later. If you forget that, when you try to change, you'll get a little, when you try to train, you'll get a little error message. I'm going to actually change this to utter play, probably. And I'm going to say type rock, paper, or scissors to play. So this is what the assistant is going to say to us to trigger the playing of the game. Cheer up, I don't need. That help, I don't need. Utter happy, I don't need. And I'm going to keep goodbye and I am a bot. And I'm going to add a new thing that our assistant can say. So this would be a fourth thing. I'm going to say play again. So once you've played, if you want to play again, I want to have a way for the assistant to say, hey, you can do that. We're going to call that text. Do you want to play again? Great. Okay, so I think that's all the things that I want my assistant to say. You could imagine that we could have additional functionality like how many times you've won or something like that, but we're keeping it simple for now because I want to get done in an hour. Session config, we are not going to change. The intense affirm we're going to use for utter play again, deny we're going to use for utter play again, bot challenge we use for bot challenge. You always want to have a bot challenge. Greet is what the user's saying, so that should all be good. We might also want to have an inform intent. So this is going to be a way for a user to just tell me something, and I'm going to use it as a way to capture slots. So let's add some slots. And by some slots, I mean 1 slot. All right. And I just have the documentation open in another page over here, so I'm going to double check our syntax. So first I want to say what I want the slot to be called, and I'm going to call it choice. So this is the slot that I'm going to use to store the thing the user chose. So this will be rock, paper, or scissors. And for type, so I have a couple options here. One is that I could use a categorical slot that has to be one of 3 things. I could also use a text slot, so I just take whatever text the user provided. And I think categorical slots make sense for this, right? Because it's going to be one of 3 things, rock, paper, or scissors. And let me pull these docs over so I can double check the syntax for the slot type. So for all this is the text slot. This would make sense if maybe you had a large number of things. Well, you could still list them out as categorical. I'm just talking through my design decisions here so you know what I'm thinking about. So categorical here, we just say the type categorical and then the values that we want the slot to have, which in our case is going to be, one sec, I got to spell categorical correct. And then the values that slot can take. And in my case, it can be rock, it can be paper, or it can be scissors. All right. How am I going to... So this all describes the structure of the information in the slot. What I haven't told my chatbot yet is how to get that information. And we're going to do that using mappings. And mappings are now obligatory. Every slot has to have them. And for this, I think it makes sense for me to... Back to the docs. Let's look at the mappings. I think it actually makes sense to pull this from an entity. So this is what would have happened automatically last time. I wouldn't have had to have said this mapping that I want to fill this intent with an entity, this slot with an entity. Now I do. So I'm going to. No, it's too big. Well, you're just gonna have to see the little bit of the screen there. That's okay. TYPE, there we go. And then we're going to, sorry, I am just checking the syntax again from entity. So that specifies what where we're getting it from, and then the specific entity that we're going to get it from, I'm going to call choice. So I'm going to create a new entity, and that entity is going to go into this slot, and it's going to be rock, paper, or scissors. So we also need to add an entities. Entities. And then it should be called choice. All right. I think that's everything that we need to change in our domain. I think we're pretty much good to go there. Let me check the chat really quick now that I have finished typing all the things I need to type. Reynolds says, I'm seeing a yellow warning message about the unexpected intent policy. Oh, you should be good. It's an experimental policy, and that's what the warning is about. You can always disable it if you would like. So it is in your config. It's in here somewhere. There we go. So you can just remove the unexpected intent policy if you're not expecting to use it. If you are going to do that, you'd want to uncomment all of this and just delete it. So sorry. Toss. Hopefully you were not hearing that. Yeah, so if you just want to get rid of the warnings and you're not using the policy, you can just get rid of the policy. It's fine. Did I use body and box before to test a Rasa chatbot? I don't think I have, no. Yeah, and Yoga's just saying it. They're letting you know that it's an experimental feature. Yeah. Hey, Emily. All right. So we have our domain updated. And this is where probably the biggest change in terms of what you're gonna need to write down is in the specification of the slots. And now looking at it, I'm super paranoid that some of these things are misspelled, but we'll find out. We'll get a helpful error message if that's the case. Other things I want to change are in the data. So for the rules, I'm going to keep this goodbye rule. I want to say goodbye when my user says goodbye. I'm going to keep the bot rule. Just keep that like it is. That should all be good. For the stories, I want, I think, 2 stories. So one where somebody plays, like, and enters the assistant, plays rock, paper, scissors, and all of that happens. And then one where they play it again. And actually, before I do that, I need to do an action. So I have not done that yet. And I will say I did a little work off camera and have a working rock, paper, scissors action file that I'm just going to copy from here. And I'll walk through it really quick. It doesn't matter what the code is, right? It's just a placeholder for a custom action you might want to use. So we have this action play RPS, rock, paper, scissors custom action. I have modified this computer choice and this big section of if statements from the Dan Elias's GitHub repo, which is under the MIT license. You can check it out. I was too lazy to write my own if statements. That's what that boils down to. Efficient. I was very efficient. So this is, the basic syntax you'd have with the Rasa action. Nothing's really changed here. So we have this action play rock, paper, scissors. It's called action play rock, paper, scissors. We do need to add this to the domain. So let's do that right now while I'm thinking about it. Actions. All right. I think that's the right number of spaces. We'll find out if I'm wrong. And we have a function in here that generates rock, paper, or scissors in, a very explicit way, I would say. And then we have this action, and this is run every time you trigger the action through a story or a rule. We're only going to be triggering it through rules. And we have this bit here, which gets the slot called choice. Where's my domain? There's my domain. This slot called choice, which is going to be filled with this entity and will be categorical, and sets this variable user choice to be whatever's in there. And then we're going to say to the user through the chatbot, you chose whatever their choice was, just so they can see that. And then we're going to use this function up here to generate the computer choice and then tell the user what the computer choice was. And then this just plays rock, paper, scissors. And if they won, they're told that they won. And if the computer wins, they're told the computer wins. And if it was a tie, they're told it was a tie. So that's all that does. There's no changing of slots in here. It's just looking up the slot, running the game, and then printing out the message all together. So that's that action. And again, this could be any code. It's, whatever it is you need it to be for your specific project that you're working on. And I've added it here as an action, so I can also add it to my stories. Little detour there. All right, so I'm going to call my first story play rock, paper, scissors. So the user is going to greet, and then my chatbot will reply with this utter play, telling the user to type rock, paper, or scissors to play. Could I do that with buttons? Yes, but they look bad in the command line, so I'm not going to. That's why. And then we should trigger this action after the user informs. So this is, we haven't written examples for this yet, but this is going to be what we're going to use to get the information that the user provides. And then the assistant is going to run this action play RPS. So the user says hi, the assistant says type rock, paper, scissors to play. The user types something in. This whole action is triggered and it'll just be printed out. And then after that, I think it makes sense to ask if they want to play again so that the interaction doesn't just end. So that is the flow for that. And then I'm also going to have a second story for play again. I could have this all in one story, but I think it's a little bit more modular to have it, you know, separated out. So if the action, the chatbot is going to say, do you want to play again? The user's going to say yes, and then we're going to start this over again. So we're going to say utter play, etc., etc. And I shouldn't need to specify all of the stuff from that, but also they can say that they don't want to play again, in which case it's going to be sort of the same. The assistant's going to be like, hey, do you want to play again? The user's going to say, no, I don't want to play again. And then at that point, we have a goodbye, right? We should probably just say goodbye because they're done and we want to be polite and let them know that something has happened. Okay, so I think we are good for stories here, right? So this is, they greet and then they play again, they don't play again. And I don't think we need to say, I don't think we need to append this to the end, right? Because it'll be a duplication of this flow. So I think we should be good to go there. Yeah. And I don't think a rule makes sense because after we start playing, someone can be like, wait a minute, are you a bot, right? So I think it makes sense that we don't have a rule here to keep a little bit of extra flexibility. So stories, check, all done. Rules we're good with. Greet we can keep as it is. Goodbye we can keep as it is. Affirm and deny we can keep as it is. We don't need mood great and we don't need mood unhappy, and we are going to keep bot challenge. So the only thing we have left is we want to add an intent called inform. And you could call it whatever you want, but it's sort of by convention that if you have an intent that you're just using to get information, you call it inform within the Rasa ecosystem. It's up to you. Examples. All right. Can I type? No. So we're going to have rock, which will be an example of our choice entity. We're going to have paper, which will be an example of our choice entity. And we're going to have scissors, which is going to be an example of our choice entity. And I could also have something like scissor and have that be a synonym that I then map to scissors, but I don't care that much. I think it'll be fine. But if I were noticing that people were trying to type scissor a lot, then I might add that to help handle that variation in user input. All right. Take a quick break and check the chat. Yeah. Amina says, you're going to build buttons or leave the writer to leave the user to write the input. I am going to have them write. We could do buttons, but they look bad on the console. That's why I'm not doing it. Faiza says, what's new in 3.0? Great question. So the three big differences are we have a new, more flexible graph architecture. If you don't want to mess with it, you don't have to. It will just reduce training times. We also have slots are now all explicitly defined. So for every slot, you have to say how it's being filled. If you have a slot and an entity that share names, they don't automatically get filled anymore. You can also reset slots, which was a big pain point in the past. So this is a great example of this. If you're playing multiple times, we're going to keep resetting this choice slot with whatever your choice was. And then the third one is markers, which we may or may not get into, but basically it is a way for you to say, when this event occurs, I want you to make a note of it, and then specify what the event is. So you can see like how many people, you know, asked about buying a car through your chatbot, or whatever it is that you care to track. So that should be really helpful for any sort of metrics that you have that you're keeping track of. Those are the big differences. And then there's a bunch of like smaller things, like general quality of life improvements. Perhaps obviously the big architecture change required a lot of refactoring on the back end. We paid down a lot of tech debt. And all of our sort of discussion about stuff is in the issues in our GitHub, which is all public. So if you really care, you can find out a whole lot more. All right, so that's what we've got so far. And I'm just going to do a quick little checklist for myself. Actions, check. NLU data, check. Rules, check. Stories, check. Models, we're going to retrain. Tests, I'm not going to deal with quite yet. Config, we didn't have to change anything. Credentials, we didn't have to change anything. Oh, endpoints. I am going to want to do, was it control backslash? Yeah. I am going to want to do this because we're going to be using an action server. So I want to make sure that the action endpoint is available. And also because of the way that, okay, little side note here, only do this if you're on Windows and only do this until, so they're talking about making 127.0.0.1? Yeah. They're talking about making this URL like a URL where a website could be at and not localhost. So, or the IP address to be like a website IP address and not localhost. So don't do this into the future indefinitely. But if you're noticing a big lag with an action server, this can help if you are running in Windows 7 Plus, which is, I'm assuming, not a production environment for most people, but you might be prototyping there. So FYI. All right, endpoints, check. Domain, check. All right, let's try to train and find out where my typos are. They're gonna be somewhere. All right. Oh, thank you so much. Emily linked the blog post about the big changes. And did I save everything? I did not. Cannot access action play RPS, as that name is not a registered action for this domain. So I believe what happened there is that I did not, in fact, save my domain file after I added this action. So let's save the domain file and try again. It wasn't a typo. Looks good. All right. Yeah, Crescent Love says, could you give us the exact code? I'm very new to Rasa, so following the tutorial exactly helps me. Great stuff, by the way. You're welcome. I mean, it's not written yet. Right? We're writing it right now. I will share it somewhere. I don't know if it'll be on. So basically, I don't like to share things on the Rasa repo unless we've committed to, supporting them into the future. And I'll just need to like double check and think about where this code goes. But yes, it'll be up on GitHub somewhere and shared. And we'll add that to the YouTube link description. Train. So one of the nice things about the graph architecture redesign that I mentioned is that because we don't sort of linearly go through everything anymore, and instead we only like draw the edges that we need in the graph, if you train something that has a dependency, only that thing and the thing it's dependent on will be retrained. And everything else won't be. So you should see faster training times, fingers crossed, and let us know if you run into any issues with that. All right, so first let's run our action server and find out what typos I made there. Run actions. And if you haven't used Rasa before, the action server can be any server running any code that interfaces with the Rasa SDK. So here the server is running this Python, like single Python class called action play rock, paper, scissors that plays rock, paper, scissors, but it can be, as complex as you need it to be for your specific use case. And our SDK and API are documented and open. So if you don't want to use Python, you don't have to. That just is the SDK that we have built for you. So I'm going to have this running on port 5055. And now Sorry, I don't know. When you're really zoomed in VS Code, for some reason, it wraps very weirdly, and I'm not entirely sure why. All right, so now I am starting my Rasa server. This Cobalt loop is our most recent model, you can see here. So if we tried to run this model, which was a Moodbot model, it would fail catastrophically because we are referencing a lot of things that I have removed. Let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. I expect at least one weird bug. I have to go find out what it is. Oh, for the action class. Yeah. Deshaun says, can you show me how to use transformers like GPT-3 and Dolly here, or give any hint? Yeah. I mean, so the easiest way to do that with Rasa is using components, and we have an integration with Hugging Face, and Hugging Face, hosts a lot of models and various transformer architectures. You're asking specifically about GPT-3. I don't think Hugging Face supports GPT-3. I believe you have to use the Microsoft API for that. I'm trying to think if I have any good resources off the top of my head, and I can't think of anything right now. I'm sure you can find some more information if you dig around. But my caution for you is to really think about, be sure that you need a transformer language model before you start spending a lot of time figuring out how to make it work. So empirically, for folks that have been using Rasa, particularly if you have a smaller data set, transformer language models are less effective than other types of models. So there's a really nice paper on from a team that was building a chatbot for Vietnamese using Rasa, and they used MBERT, which is a multilingual transformer language model, and also I think fast text embeddings, and they found that the fast text embeddings were significantly better for their application in terms of accuracy and performance, and also just being faster and smaller. So yeah, just be sure that it's something that you really need for your application, because I would say that most people don't. Anyway, my little rant there. Let's see if it works. I'm expecting some sort of awful failure. I don't know why. Something usually goes wrong, right? All right, let's pick rock. Oh, it's thinking. Nice. Okay, I was right. What have I done? Failed to execute custom actions. Okay. Create direct connection. Raise exceptions. Couldn't connect to the server. 55.5. Ah, that'd do it. That's an easy one. There we go. All right. Do I need to retrain? I think I might need to retrain. Let me just try typing rock again and see if that works. I don't know if it looks it up every time from the endpoints file. All right. So what happened there is I had the wrong address for my server. Let's quickly retrain. Shouldn't take that long. Crescent Love says, how safe stable is this version? I tried downloading the 2.9 version, had so many errors while downloading that I had to downgrade to 2.6. That is a great question. So you need to update pip, like red letters underlined. Pip has recently changed the way that they do dependencies or dependency management. And starting with I think 20.0.1, do not quote me on that. I would have to look it up. So if you are not on the most recent version of pip, you can get stuck in really nasty dependency resolution loops due to the way that they're handled. So I would first upgrade pip and then try installing. You should have a pretty easy time from there. We're working on installation videos. There's, I don't know, maybe you've noticed, we've had a lot of content around this launch, and it's been a lot of work. But yes, I definitely hear you. So for installing Rasa 3.0, install pip. Make sure that you are on you are on Python 3.8 or 3.7 or 3.8, not 3.6, not 3.9. And then I would recommend pip install for Rasa. And if you are on Windows, of course, maybe not, of course. You have to make sure that you have C++ available locally as well, and you can just download that from Microsoft. So, yeah. Deshant says, I'm thinking to use something that can search and give results. Plus Dolly has text image capabilities, so I thought to use it. Yeah. Good question. You don't need language models for IR. Well, you don't need like transformer language models for information retrieval and search. I would try doing it without first and see if it's good enough for you. And if it's not, then maybe spend some time investing in the transformer language model specifically. All right, let's say talking. Rasa shell. Start talking to our assistant. Let's see if it works this time. Now that I've pointed to an address that exists and not one that doesn't. Riveting. And you can also see that the name of the model has changed. I really like this. I know it's a small change, but it makes it much easier for me because all of these numbers look basically identical to me. I know that they're not, but all right. Yes, and this you can completely ignore this warning. If you really need it to go away, you can remove unexpected. We talked about that a little bit earlier. All right, let's see. Fun. Okay. Encountered an exception. Okay, so that's an error with this. I'm going to do Control-C to stop my action server. I'm wondering what I've done wrong. And now I'm going to restart it with logging. So I've added that -v tag. All right, let's try it one more time. So you might notice here that in response to do you want to play again, I'm just saying rock, like I'm saying one of the things I want to play with. I'm not saying yes. Even though I didn't have that as a story, right? I don't have, we have a firm here in our story after utter play again. I never have utter play again and then inform. But because inform is showing up here, my assistant's like, oh, I know what to do when you say inform and you give me this slot. You want to play rock, paper, scissors. So that's why that works. Let's check our logging. What'd I do? 5055. 5055. Yeah, it's right. HTTP. Failed to execute. All right, what's up? Format of the specified network name is invalid. All right, I'm gonna try replacing this with localhost and see if that helps. It might be looking for that. It's definitely not looking for localhost. And we'll just deal with the latency. All right, stop our assistant one more time. It's always servers. It's always server issues. All right, Rasa train. Rasa. So we train real quick. It should be fast because we're not changing much. Yeah. John says, there is a way, I'll try and show. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear more. Yeah, especially if we get it up and running. I think that could be really helpful. So you might have noticed this time it was faster to train because I didn't update much. All right, so I don't know why I'm trying to do slashes. Rasa shell. It's launching. All right, loading models. Bitter download. Oh, sounds like someone's having a bad Thursday, huh, Rasa? And then once it's up, we should see, you don't need to train, just restart the server. Okay. I don't know that I necessarily need to restart because it's not going to change where it is, right? All right, let's try it. What if I just, I'm just gonna start by saying rock and see if it works. Hello, welcome to the stream. Nice, it works. Let's say scissors. Here's something. So if I say something like scissor, I believe my slot will not be reset. Okay, yeah, no way that's happening. So what's happening here is that because this is a categorical slot and this is not one of the options, I believe it is being set to none, which is the hidden extra category that happens when you have a categorical slot. And because none is not here for user choice, we're getting bumped down to this else, and we're being told that it was a tie. So we could handle that if we wanted to. But I think that there's something maybe a little bit more interesting to do here. We got about 20 minutes, so I think we can do it. I want to have a marker that records when we win, basically, or when we lose. So I'm going to have another slot, and I'm going to have that slot be set to win or lose every time I run the action where it occurs. Yeah, Deshaun says endpoints and credentials don't need training. Ah, thank you, hopeful. That's always my default. Like if something's gone wrong, retrain. I think it's a good Rasa stance. All right, so we have our foundational bits of our assistant working. So let's stop this. Let's make you small. And let's start by adding a new slot and then interacting with it with a marker. So markers. Whoop. This is from the docs. Markers are conditions used to describe and mark points of interest in your dialogue. So they go into a file which is not here in our Moodbot based example called markers.yaml, and they look like this, right? So I have the name of the marker, and then all of my conditions that I want to be set for it. So here we have some slots and then an action, and when all of these are resolved or all true, our marker will be like, aha, I've noted that, and add it to our list of places where the marker was marked. I don't know, maybe that's not the most eloquent way to say that, but you know what I mean. So we are going to set a new slot. I'm trying to think what would make the most sense. So we could have like a slot that's like whether or not we won. We could have a slot that's like, or we could have a marker that hey, this person wanted to play again. So that could be a useful thing to track. Like how many times are people playing the assistant, or playing rock, paper, scissors using the assistant, or like using it more than once. We could look at how many completed games there are. So that could be a good use of markers. There's a lot of different ways that we could use them here that might be helpful. He says, how does the computer choose what to play? Is it random? It is random. So it's determined in this function called computer choice, which again is based on Dan Elias's rock, paper, scissors, Python repository from GitHub, which is under an MIT license. So it generates a random integer between 1 and 3, so 1, 2, or 3, between 1 and 3 inclusive. If it's 1, it's rock. If it's 2, it's paper. If it's 3, it's scissors. And it stores that. And then this is rerun every time the action is run. Yes, is how the computer decides. There's like a surprising number of reinforcement learning for rock, paper, scissors projects out there that I don't know that I would recommend as a use of reinforcement learning, but maybe helpful to learn the syntax of reinforcement learning. Yes. I think, so this is an example for this is specifically an example for Moodbot, where you set the marker that the mood is expressed every time the intent is unhappy or great. I think let's start by doing a simple marker that just is triggered every time we run our play action, so we can count how many times people play the game. And of course, it's just me running it locally here, so maybe not the most helpful, you know, maybe not the most helpful thing to do, but if you had this in production and you wanted to count like how many times people do a specific action, this could be really helpful. So we're gonna call it marker played rock, paper, scissors. And then we are going to, we only really have one. Do I need to have Boolean logic if I only have one? Following operators are supported and or not sequence at least once, never. Yeah, okay, I don't need to. So I am going to have it be intent, space, intent, and then the intent, nope, action, sorry. Intents are from users, actions are from the assistant. The action is action underscore RPS, is that right? Action underscore play underscore RPS. So let's make sure that I have that right. One space, there we go, that should be good. All right. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, there's a dog barking. Let's try, I'm gonna retrain. I don't know that I need to, but it makes me feel better if I retrain. And again, because of the speed ups, if nothing needs to be retrained, it won't be. So, question from Nick. Oh, actually, there's some other questions. So John wants to know, can I dynamically set reminders? Like if a user says, remind me to get veggies, remind me to play with baby, etc. Is this possible? Yes. What you're probably going to want to do is do a custom action. So maybe this face is me making this face is me thinking about async actions. Yeah. Because you probably don't want one action to be just like running, right? While you wait for something to happen. Yes, you can. It's going to have to be a custom action. That's the end of that. And then I would just like send a dispatcher message, basically. Although I guess my question is, are they going to have the chat open indefinitely? It might make the most sense for an SMS bot, where you then trigger sending a specific SMS at, you know, a certain point when the condition has been fulfilled. Yes, we do not have it like, there's no pre-built way to do it in Rasa is what I'm saying there, but yes, it's definitely possible. Yeah. Nick wants to know, on the forum, there's a lot of issues with integrating Rasa with Rasa web chat / botfront and the Rasa widget, and issues related to WebSocket. Sanic is it updated to 21.9.3. Yes, I have not worked on those things. Also, web chat and botfront, I believe, are not maintained by us, so reaching out to the developers there might be the best, or at least the speediest course of action. All right. Let's try talking to our assistant and yeah, see how these markers are set. I think that I probably got syntax wrong somewhere. Like probably I have a space where I should have a tab or vice versa. We always use spaces. Probably I have a tab where I should have a space or vice versa. So we'll find out. Yeah, kind of like that. I will integrate with something. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I were building it, I might use like Heroku, if then that, if this, then that. I can never remember how many T's are in it. I have T. You know the one that I mean. I'd probably use a service like that like triggers something. All right. my scissors. So it should now be all right. What I'm looking for now is the output of markers, because I think that I have done it slightly wrong. All right, let's try it out. I honestly did not think we would get all the way to markers today. I was hopeful, but not that hopeful. All right. They are stored in your tracker store. All right, so let's pull these out to a CSV. There's a button there that says copy. I don't know why I'm trying to do things. And let's do just one more thing. So we should now have 3 instances of the marker being triggered in our marker store, which is part of the tracker store. And I copy this. Let's do it. All right, so we should now have, there we go, our CSV files right here. Extracted markers. Ooh, I don't see any. Stats overall. No, I have done a I've done a typo somewhere. All right, what'd I do? Marker underscore, that's right. Marker configuration file, yes. A unique identifier, at least one event condition. Also use operands. We didn't need any operands. Unique markers identified. Yes, excellent. Action. Okay, I didn't call it actions. Negated, all right. Marker configuration. Here's an example. I'm pretty sure. Maybe actions need an operand. That could be my issue. Single operand operated with lists of conditions. Each marker's unique identifier can provide a single condition. No, it should be good. I think my basic syntax is right, but I think I've done something else. You cannot reuse an existing name. Okay, I have not done that. The values assigned must be valid according to your domain. They're both intents, listed in the mood. Okay, that should be good. And a tracker store. Yes. Markers.yaml. Yes. I called that right. 2 summary statistics files. And I will say this is an experimental feature. And it has worked for me before. So I'm not sure what I've done. Process the tracker store in your bot's endpoint.yaml. Specify a different endpoint. Tracker loading. Rasa evaluate markers. Each tracker in the tracker store contains multiple sessions. The script will process each session individually, indexing them by session ID X. Extracted markers. Okay, yes, that's what it should like. It'll only be extracted once. We want it extracted every time, so I don't think we need that. This is what it should look like. And it looks like this. What have I done? What problems have I made? Did I save my dialogues in a tracker store? I don't think I have. That's a great question. Tracker store are stored in memory. No, okay, so the cache is something else. Yeah, you know what? I think I am not storing them in a tracker store. There is one locally, right? So what used to happen, I think, okay, I know what my issue is. So what used to happen is we used to store the tracker store locally as SQLite. Sounds right to me. So this is gonna have to point towards something else. All right, into tracker stores. Thank you, ACL. I'm glad that my syntax is right. All right, let's dig into this a little bit more. We got 5 minutes. We can do it. All right, to the tracker stores. Tracker stores. In memory tracker store, it is used if no tracker store is configured. It stores the conversation's history in memory. The entire history is lost if you restart the Rasa server. No configuration is needed to use in SQL Tracker Store. Yes, all right. I think I know what my issue is. So I believe what happened is that I need to open a third terminal for this to actually work, because when I stopped my shell, I also killed the Sanic server, and with it, all of my memories of all of the conversations. So let's try this one more time with my server continuing to run. And I have to do command prompt because PowerShell don't work. Activate Rasa 3.8. The 3.8 there is for Python 3.8, in case you were wondering. And done. Okay, now, as long as my server is running and the tracker store exists in the server's memory, I should be able to interact with it. And I believe it'll point to that by default. We'll find out. Markers will not work on the in-memory tracker. I should just, you should define a tracker store in your endpoint file. I'm not gonna be able to do that in 4 minutes. Thanks, ACL. All right, so the syntax is right. I don't really want to set up a tracker store, and I don't think I have time right now because I don't even know that I have Redis on this computer. I'd have to deal with figuring that all out, but that's the syntax. So if you did have a tracker store, it would work. Cool, thanks. And I think that is a great note to end on with one of my terminals crashing. I mentioned previously markers, like, not super interesting or helpful if you're just running it locally for prototyping, but once you have, your big, system set up, you're in production, people are using your assistant, you want to see what they're doing, and that, the things that you want to happen are happening, or the things that you think that should be happening are happening, and the things that you think should not happen are not happening. So negative markers, like a whoopsie marker, if some particular event that you don't want to happen happens, might be a helpful thing to keep in mind as well. In a full production setup and not a toy, what would I call this? A toy prototype should work perfectly well. So that is what we're going to call it today. Quick review of the things that are different in 3.0. The architecture, again, really doesn't affect you as a developer unless you want it to. And if you have your own recipe that you would like to use, you can define it and then call it here. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. We have a sensible default for you. The slots now all require a explicit mapping. So this slot choice is a categorical slot. It's set from an entity. Instead of that happening automatically and silently behind the scenes, I specify that it comes from this specific entity. If I had a form, I would also not need to specify the mappings in the form. I would just need to list, I want to get the choice slot. I want to get all of these other slots because the mappings are defined in the slots, which can be really helpful if you have a lot of forms. Will save you a lot of work. And then the markers, here's the syntax. It's not going to work unless you have a tracker store set up that is not the in-memory tracker store, which I'm not going to do right now. But if you had it, that is what it would look like. And then to get these CSV files, you run the Rasa evaluate markers command, and then additional information as needed. And this is what I use to generate these files, which if I did have a tracker store, would have all my markers in them and all of the sort of useful information that I would need. And then I think the only other thing that would be visible here would be, that the model naming format has now changed. So those are the big things that are different with Rasa 3.0. Make sure, if you are installing Rasa 3.0, you update pip first. If you try to use an older version of pip, the likelihood you'll get stuck in a really nasty slow dependency loop is very high. So the most recent version of pip that works with your version of Python and operating system, Python 3.7 and 3.8 only. We're deprecating support for 3.6, and 3.9 is not supported yet. And I think that's it. Those are all the big things. So we have a bot that plays rock, paper, scissors, just to show you the functionality again. Scissors. We won. Congratulations to all of us for winning against a random number generator. So that's all I've got today for live coding. I hope this was helpful. Sorry about having the markers work. Like I said, I genuinely did not think that it was going to go as fast as it did. We will be back tomorrow. The fabulous Emma, your community manager, will be one of your community managers, has a great stream lined up for you. We've got some interviews with contributors. We got some like cool shout outs. So definitely tune in to that. And then next week, we will be back to our normal live stream schedule, office hours on Wednesday, TBD on Friday. It'll be something. It should be good. And yeah, we will see you then. If you have any issues with 3.0, please feel free to ask on the forums or to file a GitHub issue if you run into a bug. We'd love to help you out with that and make sure that everything's running well. Also, big shout out to all the contributors and community members who helped give us feedback on 3.0 and helped with testing and making sure that everything worked right. Very happy about that. All right, thanks so much for joining, everybody. Good luck. This code will be available somewhere at some point in the future, and we will talk to you soon. So I hope you enjoy 3.0. Thanks for joining today, and we'll talk to you later.